name is Julia and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to talk about how I grow strawberries here in northern Canada. Alright, so first things first is we're going to talk about my setup. So it's pretty simple. 3 years ago we hired this local guy to come over. He has an attachment on the back of his tractor, and essentially what it does is it plows the earth together, or the ground or the dirt or whatever. It plows it together and then it lays plastic over top while running a soaker hose underneath. So that's what we have our strawberries in. It works super well. It is very good for weed control. It keeps the moisture in, and so far, we've had it for 3 years now. Our strawberries absolutely love it. The soaker hose underneath is just a plastic one. It just came with what the guy supplied, and we water about 4 times a week, I'd say, for a minimum of 2 hours. Yeah, our strawberries seem to love it. I have tried 3 different kinds of strawberries in this plastic. I have tried a Seascape, and I've also tried Brunswick and Kent. So since I'm a Zone 2 gardener, it's very hard to find plants that actually survive here and actually do well here. And one thing I learned the hard way was that Seascape do not winter well in this kind of situation. For example, my mom and my grandma, they grew Seascape this last year and they survived over winter, but they planted them in the ground. Whereas my setup, it's a little bit higher off the ground, so the cold can easier access the roots. And so unfortunately, all my Seascape died the first year that I had strawberries. But I got about 36 pails of ice. When I say pails, I mean like an ice cream pail, like a 4-liter, a round of strawberries out of 100 strawberry plants on my first year with Seascape. And I had so many strawberries that in the fall, they just were full of strawberries. I just couldn't get to them all, because they produced probably from end of July all the way until frost. And so since they died though, I tried a new variety, not this year but the summer before, and they're Brunswick and Kent. So they're only June bearing, but they're Zone 2, so they survived the winter this last year, and they're doing very, very well. I'm not sure which plants are Brunswick, which ones are Kent. I honestly just mix them all together. But they're all doing very well, and they're all starting to produce. There's flowers that are coming. Every plant is producing something. So in total I have about, I would say, like 175-ish plants. Actually, honestly, haven't counted, but around that many. So in the spring, the first thing that I did is I wanted to give them a bit of water just to kind of get them started, wake them up a little bit, and get them ready for the year. And that has made, I think, the biggest difference that I've seen, because the previous year, well, I guess they died the previous year. So actually, I should say this is my first winter that they survived, and I've had to do this spring work. So the first winter when I had Seascape, I was told to cut off all the greenery for the winter and cut them into stubs. Okay. And put hay over top for winter protection. Water the hay so there's a seal of ice over the hay and that they should winter through. However, they did not. But then I also learned that Seascape isn't zone 2. So really, it's kind of a toss-up. So then this last year, in the fall, I was like, do you know what, strawberries? You're just going to have to figure out how to survive on your own. I wasn't willing to cut anything off, so I left the plants totally how they were. I let them die off. I left the runners on because the previous year I had cut off all the runners so that the main plant would focus on just growing and staying alive. So that I just completely left them alone, and the strawberries came back almost 100%. However, since I did leave them, there was a lot of leaves and a lot of just mess I wanted to clean up and get those dead leaves off of the plastic. Also, there was tons of runners that I had left also last year. So what I did this year is I cleaned up the dead leaves, and I also cut off all the runners. I left them for a few days, and then I dug them all up and I transplanted them, and then I moved them into my open space in the plastic with the strawberries. Transplanted, I would say about 75% survive. Well, we're probably going closer to 65. However, I got about 200 runners, 175, 200 runners. Wait, no, because I took out 90. I gave away 90, and then I still filled up about 50-ish plants. 150-ish runners that I took out from the ground and I could replant and reuse them. And then 90 went to my mom and my brother-in-law, and 100% of theirs survived. So I don't know what I did wrong this year. Mine was at 65% about survival, but it was a good way to not spend the money on buying new plants. And then these runners from last year, they're right away in their second year. Whereas one thing I noticed about the June bearing is their first year was terrible. Okay, my brother-in-law, he got a way better harvest from his the first year, but mine, however, it was not good. No matter how much I watered them, they just didn't produce the first year. But this year, it's just worlds of a difference. So now I know the difference between Seascape is an everbearing, so that means they produce all year. June bearing, they only produce about a month-ish. Everbearing or the Seascape, they produced first year, they were just amazing, and then the June bearing, it's looking like the second year they're just producing way better. Alright, so now we're going to talk about how I water these plants. So as I said before, I water them about 4 times a week for a minimum of 2 hours, and that takes so much water because strawberries love water. If you want to have a lot of production, you need lots of water for strawberries. That's one thing I know for sure. Luckily, when we moved on to this property that we are on now, they had a huge dugout. We have a huge, massive water source, and it is also connected up to the house. So we have a pump that pulls water from the dugout into our house, and then we can just hook onto the outside of the tap on the outside of the house, and we can use that to fuel to water our whole garden, our lawn. We have the dugout water also hooked up to our shop, so it goes from the dugout to our furnace room or our utility room or whatever downstairs, and then it pumps the water to the shop, and that's how we water our animals, pressure wash our vehicles with that. Like everything on the yard besides the house, we use just this dugout water. So yeah, we're just very fortunate that we have such a good water supply here, and that just kind of makes this so much easier for us to make these strawberries do well. All right, so now we're going to talk about pest control. We don't really have that many pests here, and my garden is for the most part just a completely organic garden because I don't actually have to worry about bugs too much. I've never really had to. Like even aphids and stuff like that, I just honestly don't have any here. I don't know if it's because it's a little bit more windy or just where I'm located, but yeah, as for insects and that pests in that kind of sense, we don't have any. We do have though wasps, and we do have birds that like to eat my strawberries. And if I would have been more preppy, I would have painted some rocks with strawberries and then put them in my flower bed. I just didn't get around to it. So this year we're doing two different things, and one is we bought a fake owl. His name is Seagull, and he watches over our strawberries for us. And then we also have a wasp nest, like a fake one, that we are hanging up because the wasps really like to hang around this area, and they love strawberries. Those are the two things that we do for pest control. The wasp thing works really well. I have no idea how the bird thing, like the fake bird, I have no idea how that's gonna work. I'll let you know. It's our first year with Mr. Seagull over there. All right, so I mentioned that I was a Canadian, and that's where I obviously live and I garden. I don't think you can get more Canadian than this right here. So this is what I call the Sherwood fertilizer. I duct taped my Miracle Grow fertilizer gun onto my hockey stick. I mean, they don't make hockey sticks like this anymore. This is my first hockey stick I've ever owned. And this thing has been so handy, you have no idea. This thing has mice in my house. This thing has helped me so much in the garden. This thing gets like spider webs. Like the most underrated tool is right here. My sister has one, and she had this rooster, and it's a whole long story. But anyways, if you don't have a hockey stick, you need to get yourself one. Anyways, so this is the first year I fertilized, so I'm not going to say that it works miracles. However, my plants look insane. Okay? So I don't want to knock it because it could be the fertilizer, or it just could be the second year plants versus the first year plants. But yeah, this is just regular flower fertilizer. Like you can turn on the amount, I don't know if you can see, but you can turn on how much you feed versus how much water you give. And this is what I had, so this is what I was going to use. And I knew that my strawberries wouldn't be that particular with how I fertilize, but I did know I wanted to for sure fertilize just because this is my third year where this plastic has just stayed at the same spot. And I knew that the nutrients in the ground, like because it doesn't get any sun and it doesn't get any deadfall from the plants, like it never gets any nutrients put back into it. I knew this year I wanted to fertilize, and so I fertilized in the spring after my runners had gotten a little bit better established. I fertilized them, and I will fertilize them again probably after they're done producing the strawberries, and then possibly before fall or before winter, or I'm going to do it just before winter. We'll see how that goes, but honestly, it actually worked really handy. Like I just attached my water hose here, and I just didn't have to bend over once. Oh, anyways, the strawberries right now, they're doing so good. They're flowering. I have tons of strawberries coming up. They are looking amazing. It's just so exciting to be able to grow your own fruit. And not even that, I can do it so organically. Yeah, there's fertilizer in there. It's whatever. Come on. You can't win at everything, okay? Very exciting to be able to grow my own food. I just really hope you got some good ideas from this video. And also, you can totally grow strawberries without the plastic. I just did it because to me it's just easier with like weeding and watering. You hook up the water hose and you're done. However, all these things can still apply if you don't have them in plastic. It's just a little bit of an extra thing. And to me, it's been totally worth it. Locally, so many people are starting to put their strawberries in plastic because the weeds, it helps so much. It keeps the moisture in. The strawberries just seem to love it. I mean, you put in all this work and effort, you kind of want to get some harvest, right? You want to get something back from it. Yeah, I hope you really enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And yeah, thank you so much for watching.